Sierra Space is entering the final stretch ahead of Dream Chaser's first flight targeting late this year. After years of development, everything was finally lining up. Then, a serious problem surfaced. ULA's Vulcan rocket, the vehicle assigned to launch Tenacity, ran into major trouble serious enough that the Space Force paused Vulcan launches pending an investigation. That puts Tenacity's timeline in real danger. At this critical moment, who can rescue the mission? There's only one name, SpaceX. But would it be Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, or could Starship enter the game? Let's break it down in today's episode of Alpha Tech. It's genuinely exciting to see Tenacity, the first operational Dream Chaser vehicle from Sierra Space, finally approaching its maiden flight. After 15 years of development, multiple delays, and nearly $2 billion in NASA contract funding, it's almost ready to fly. And that matters. The space vehicle market has been feeling a bit stagnant lately with very few real breakthroughs. Tenacity changes that. It represents a fresh transportation option, one that helps NASA diversify beyond SpaceX's Dragon and gradually reduce its reliance on a single provider. At the same time, it eases some of the pressure on SpaceX in maintaining cargo supply missions to the ISS. Technically, the progress has been solid. Tenacity recently completed a major round of testing at Kennedy Space Center. That includes high-speed tow tests on the massive runway once used by the Space Shuttle Communications checks, with the Mission Control Center in Colorado, through NASA's satellite network and a full recovery rehearsal simulating post-landing operations. Now, it's entering the final phase, final assembly and certification. The focus is heavily on software certification and validation of the propulsion system, which uses hydrogen peroxide combined with a blended fuel mixture. It's a complex setup, and it has to be tested thoroughly to ensure absolute safety. Both NASA and Sierra Space continue to state clearly that everything remains on track for a free-flyer demo mission in late 2026. Under the current plan, Tenacity will launch on ULA's Vulcan Centaur. In many ways, it feels like a modern mini version of the legendary space shuttle, but fully reusable, capable of landing smoothly on a runway instead of parachuting into the ocean. But now, a new problem has surfaced, and it centers on Vulcan Centaur. Just a few weeks ago, on February 12th, 2026, during the U.S. SF-87 mission, carrying two GSSAP space surveillance satellites for the U.S. Space Force, things almost went sideways. Less than 30 seconds after liftoff, one of the four GM-63XL solid rocket boosters experienced a significant performance anomaly. The nozzle suffered a burn-through. The exhaust plume shifted off axis. There was abnormal flame, even debris visible coming off the booster. The rocket slightly deviated from its expected trajectory. Fortunately, the two BE-4 main engines compensated in time, adjusting thrust and keeping the vehicle stable. The mission was ultimately declared a success. The payloads were delivered precisely into geosynchronous orbit. ULA described it as a significant anomaly, but still stood by the launch as successful. The Space Force, however, is not an easy customer. By the end of February 2026, it paused all national security launches on Vulcan. Eric Zarobniski from Space Systems Command made it clear, until this anomaly is fully understood and resolved, no national security space launch missions will fly on Vulcan. The investigation is now underway, and it could take months to complete. That's a serious blow. ULA had planned dozens of NSSL missions this year, including PS-3 satellites and classified NRO payloads. Now that entire schedule is effectively blown apart. And the bigger issue is this. For Vulcan, this was not the first time. Similar booster-related concerns had surfaced before. This latest failure may be the tipping point. Now, people are bound to ask a hard question. Is ULA truly fixing the root cause, or have they been accepting marginal performance as long as the rocket still makes it to orbit? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is clear. This is not an easy fix. The first time Vulcan ran into a similar issue was during its second flight back in October 2024. Now it's March 2026. More than a year and a half later, and the same type of problem has shown up again. That raises a serious question. Can ULA truly resolve this by the end of this year? Because remember, late 2026 is when Dream Chaser Tenacity is supposed to fly its free-flyer demo mission. To be clear, the Space Force only paused national security launches under the NSSL program. There is no blanket grounding of Vulcan. Commercial or civil missions, including Sierra Space's CRS-2 flight for NASA, could technically proceed if ULA is confident in the vehicle. But here's the real issue. Would Sierra Space be willing to risk its spacecraft on a rocket that has now shown a recurring anomaly? Tenacity's first flight is absolutely critical. This is not just a technical demo. It is the moment Dream Chaser must prove it can safely reach orbit, operate freely in space, and then glide back for a smooth runway landing like a mini space shuttle. A successful mission would unlock regular cargo flights to the ISS. It would give NASA another logistics option and reduce reliance on SpaceX's Dragon. It could even open doors to future defense or Department of Defense applications. But a failure, even a delay or a minor anomaly, could shake confidence. NASA investors, partners, all of them are watching. And for a program that has already faced years of delays and heavy spending, another setback would make the road ahead even harder. So, if Vulcan is off the table, what does Dream Chaser do? At this point, realistically, only SpaceX has the capability to step in and offer an alternative launch vehicle. From the very beginning, Sierra Space officials have stated that Dream Chaser was designed to be compatible with multiple launch systems. That flexibility comes from its stowed configuration. The wings fold in, allowing the spacecraft to fit inside a 5-meter class payload fairing. But when you look closely at Falcon 9, things get complicated. On paper, the numbers look promising. Falcon 9's payload capacity to low Earth orbit in expendable mode is around 22 metric tons, more than enough for Dream Chaser and its Shooting Star cargo module. However, the issue is not mass, it's volume and geometry. Falcon 9's standard fairing is about 2 meters in diameter, but the internal usable volume and shape are not ideal for Dream Chaser, plus the attached cargo module. The spacecraft is roughly 9 meters long, and with its winged body, it needs more comfortable clearance. Technically, Sierra Space once mentioned compatibility, including Falcon 9, during early concept discussions, but in practical terms today, Falcon 9 is very likely ruled out. That leaves Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy offers high reliability and a strong flight record. It flies less frequently than Falcon 9, but its performance margin and fairing configuration make it a far more realistic option. And there's another factor: cost. Based on recent defense contract data from 2025, Falcon Heavy launches are priced at roughly $95 million compared to around $200 million for Vulcan Centaur. That is nearly half the cost. And we're not done yet, because there's still Starship. But right now, Starship is simply overkill for a payload like Dream Chaser. More importantly, it's not fully ready for this kind of mission. The vehicle is still in its test phase, focused on proving reusability, validating heat shield performance, and demonstrating reliable orbital operations. In terms of raw capability, there's no question. Starship has a 9-meter diameter payload bay. The Super Heavy booster and Starship upper stage, powered by Raptor 3 engines, deliver enormous thrust. This system is being built to carry crews and cargo to the Moon and eventually to Mars. Lifting Dream Chaser to low Earth orbit would be well within its capacity. But capability is not the issue. Timing is. Right now, Starship is still proving itself. For a critical first flight like Tenacity's demo mission, Sierra Space would likely want a launcher with a mature track record and stable operations. So, when you weigh everything, performance, reliability, availability, and cost, Falcon Heavy still stands out as the most practical and realistic option. But there's another concern here. If Vulcan ultimately has to step aside and Falcon Heavy takes over, could that create political friction? Just recently, Jim Bridenstine, former NASA administrator and now a registered lobbyist for ULA, publicly supported Section 313 in the Senate version of the NASA Authorization Act of 2026. That provision would prohibit NASA from awarding more than 50% of its total launch contract value to any single provider. On paper, it sounds like a diversification measure. In practice, it directly affects SpaceX. Right now, a large share of NASA launch contracts goes to SpaceX for one simple reason: lower cost, high reliability, and exceptional execution speed. If this rule were enacted, NASA could be forced to shift a significant portion of its budget to ULA or other providers, even if they are more expensive and do not match SpaceX's launch cadence or success rate. Critics argue that this kind of lobbying effectively pressures NASA into partnering with higher-cost, higher risk, slower moving contractors, at a time when SpaceX is demonstrating strong performance and cost efficiency. If the legislation passes, NASA could end up spending hundreds of millions more in taxpayer dollars to sustain legacy providers even while Vulcan is still under investigation and SpaceX vehicles are ready to fly. This isn't the first time Jim Bridenstine has made public moves that put SpaceX at a disadvantage. Just a few months ago, in late October 2025, at the Von Braun Space Exploration Symposium, he joined former NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden for a fireside chat. During that discussion, he raised serious doubts about the current Artemis architecture, especially NASA's reliance on Starship as the human landing system for Artemis 3. Bridenstine argued that the architecture is too complex and that it could reduce America's chances of beating China back to the moon. He called for better alignment between political goals and execution capability. At one point, he even suggested invoking the Defense Production Act to accelerate development of an alternative lunar lander, something built quickly in a skunk works-style effort. On the surface, that may sound neutral, but many observers interpreted it as indirect support for legacy contractors, such as Blue Origin Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman companies tied to the broader Artemis ecosystem, and firms he is now connected to through advisory and lobbying roles. SpaceX did not stay silent. Shortly afterward, the company posted a lengthy thread on X pushing back firmly. They wrote that Mr. Bridenstine's recent remarks promoting a new landing system and even invoking the Defense Production Act were being portrayed as unbiased views of a former NASA administrator. They stated clearly that they were not, and that is where the tension lies. After everything SpaceX has contributed to American spaceflight, from rescuing the Commercial Crew Program with Crew Dragon, the only spacecraft currently flying American astronauts to the ISS, to driving launch costs down to historic lows and positioning Starship as a central enabler of Artemis, Bridenstine's stance has raised eyebrows. So now the debate becomes broader than just Dream Chaser or Vulcan. Where do you stand? Do you support SpaceX's approach? Or do you agree with Bridenstine's concerns? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.